Is my identity known to you? When an $800,000 project goes off the rails because the supervisor sacked an irreplaceable employee, it comes back to haunt him. To begin with, I was not a victim of this. I was in the same room as the individual when they got the call regarding this matter. Later on, he gave me a rundown of everything. I'm sharing it since he isn't on Reddit. Everything about it is invaluable. To safeguard individual and business identities, all names have been altered. Listed buildings, crucial to the tale. Important and historic structures in the United Kingdom are protected by a system. Listed buildings are those that have significant historical value. As a result, there are stringent regulations about their development, maintenance, and improvement. The more specific I am about the tasks at hand, the more obvious it will be who is responsible for what if I am not careful. Alexander, a friend of mine, has exceptional skills in a subset of the construction industry. Using a technique that hasn't been popular for hundreds of years, he fixes and renovates structures. Protected structures and conservation efforts constitute his whole body of work. A property with a Grade 1 listing needed work. General contractor ACC Limited was in charge of the construction process as a whole. Specialization is required for one aspect of the task. The architect provided a list of competent individuals as the contractor's management did not know anyone who could do it. Since he was available first, the contractors picked my pal. The principal contractor, ACC Limited, had been on site for 5 days when the owner showed up. According to Alexander, he was being an obnoxious jerk and displaying his dominance. As he went about his work, Alexander paid him no mind. One of his carpenters was instructed by the noisy gobshite to procure coffee for him. The joiner vanished. The obnoxious complainant persisted in aimlessly meandering and ranting about how his delays had cost him a lot. The obnoxious jackass approached my pal 15 minutes after the carpenter had left and asked him something. "Whoa, where's the chippy that came with my coffee? It's so loud and annoying." This chippy is a carpenter. Alexander, I am unsure. Get out of here, you noisy dweeb. I don't work for ACC Limited, Alexander. I'm only pointing to the walls to indicate my employment. Dude, it doesn't matter to me if you're an employee or a subcontractor. You're still working for me. Locate my coffee, please. My agreement with you is to complete these walls and nothing more, and I do not enjoy being treated in that way, Alexander. It's clear that I am not a gopher. You don't like it when others treat you rudely? Do you, noisy gobshite? Tell me which subcontractor you're employed by. Alexander, 0. I run my own business. Only I am here. Stupid, obnoxious day laborer? And you're so bold as to address them in such a way. Is my identity known to you? Alexander, I agree. Dude, you're absolutely fired. Leave the premises immediately. Alexander, I understand. Please document it. You annoying dweeb. Go away. Quit wasting your time on this site. Alexander took out his phone and began to record. Okay, Alexander. I'll be gone. The only thing I need is confirmation that you instructed me to go. The obnoxious jackass snatched Alexander's phone from his fingers and yelled into it. Dude, stop being such a bother and just leave the site. That's it. I will have you kicked out in 10 minutes if you are still here. Okay. No worries, Alexander. He gathered all of his equipment and departed. He grinned as the contractor's site manager walked by him on his way out, carrying a coffee for the boss. What time are you going, Dave? I'm the site manager. Joking bloodthirsty part-timers. I was recently fired from my job, Alexander. The validity of our agreement has expired. Sorry, dude. No, site manager. No. I will take care of this. Please be patient. Kindly be patient. After Alexander went, he departed. Because he knew something that the annoying dweeb didn't, the site manager was going absolutely bonkers. On the whole, there are just 7 individuals in the UK who meet the requirements for the job. There is a waiting list for every single one of them, and Alexander was the only one who was accessible. 12 calls had slipped his mind by the time he got home. Thursday came and went. 2 business days have already elapsed. He expressed his willingness to return, but only after receiving payment for the additional days and receiving an authentic apology from his supervisor in person. During the time that I met my buddy, he was on the phone with the site manager, who said that the boss wanted to apologize but couldn't be there in person since he was out of the country. According to Alexander, he contacted the other specialists by phone to serve as a warning, but they had already been contacted on Friday in an impassioned plea to complete the task. Everyone passed on the task. All of them are completely booked. In order to forewarn the architect, Alexander also called him. In cases like this, dishonest contractors attempt to wing it and pass off the work as their own. Alexander will not budge from his position. Aside from a face-to-face apology, you must compensate for any scheduled absences. Surely, he will understand it. I've already stated that I'd pay anything to see the face-to-face apology. Update 1. An obnoxious individual advised the site manager to threaten Alexander with legal action if the work is not completed by the given deadline. An ashamed and remorseful site manager emerged from the meeting. Even if he didn't leave, Alexander still retains evidence of his dismissal. The idiot on site called back to say that he will apologize face-to-face on Friday for being so loud. Is tomorrow a good day for Alexander to begin? Not at all, according to Alexander. Things are different now that legal action is a real possibility. 1. Apologies in advance of work resuming. 2. Additional compensation for days that were not utilized. 3. Complete payment is required prior to the commencement of any work. 4. It is imperative that everything is completed by Thursday, as that is the final day he may begin and still anticipate finishing before his next appointment. With his weekend job, he'll have plenty of time. I questioned his decision not to charge a hefty premium for the guy's wankerish behavior. According to him, taking advantage of businesses when they're short on time doesn't seem good. Out of the ordinary. It would appear that I have a buddy who is a gentleman from the 18th century. Edit. I mistook Alexander's statement that just 7 people performed this task. Not including his own company, he meant 7 others. Because they are tiny firms, he estimates that there are around 20 individuals capable of doing it. Although it's still a little number, it's not as absurdly tiny as 7. It is my sincere regret that I misled you on the number. Second update. It appears no apology will be forthcoming. According to what Alexander found out, the site manager was sacked because he was accused of not informing the noisy gobshite about the issue in advance. Alexander phoned the operations director of ACC Limited, the second of those annoying gobshites, to let them know that he will not be returning to the job and that an apology is no longer necessary. 1. The head of operations profusely apologized and tried to renegotiate the payment terms. Alexander explained to him that the only reason he had contemplated returning to the position was as a courtesy to the previous site manager. He has no desire to go back now that he isn't there. No reason was given by the operations director when he promised to return to Alexander. Why didn't he just tell him to hand him back his job? I threatened not to return if he didn't. Noisy gobshite is too weak and petty to listen to a craftsman, according to Alexander. The return of the site manager must have been proposed by the firm itself. No matter how much I beg them, they will not return him. The site manager is excellent at his profession, according to Alexander, but he'll be 61 years old in the next several years, and finding work will be difficult. My feelings for Alexander have grown since I first met him 3 days ago. It is now 2 a.m. here. Update 3. We returned from the pub not long ago. The fired site manager called Alexander while we were away. This afternoon, Alexander gave the architect an update on the problem. The architect reached out to the fired site manager to inform him about a business that is looking to hire a manager like him. Just before 9 o'clock in the evening, the fired site manager called Alexander, and I had to listen to the whole conversation, as I could only hear one side. Like I got a swarm of sparrows. I must have seemed overly thrilled, like a little kid. Alexander proceeded to enlighten me. The site manager called to express his gratitude and inquire about his drink of choice so that he might send him a bottle. He has not yet received the new position, but he is scheduled to meet with them on Friday. It seems the architect's advice is not without merit. Therefore, he maintains a positive outlook. Alexander first declined. The architect got you the job, not me. The site manager said that you were the one who informed the architect that I had been sacked, which caused all this chaos. That annoying dweeb will be a thing of the past thanks to you. Alexander failed to identify the annoying jerk. Guessing will have to do. Cardew Gold Reserve is Alexander's preferred beverage. First, he wants the site manager to land the new position. Second, he wants the manager to join Alexander for a drink of Cardew. Only then would he take a bottle. It appears that the gorgeous journalist who painstakingly chronicled this story on Reddit is not partaking in the whiskey drinking. Piss off, you moron, and go buy yourself a drink, Alexander said with poetic license. Assuming all goes according to plan, the only bad thing is that no one gets to witness that obnoxious slob eat shit when he has to apologize. I was eagerly anticipating that. Moreover, Alexander has personal acquaintances with the sacked site manager. They all belong to different nonprofits in their hometown. They are two separate groups. However, they collaborate frequently. Alexander is a member of the Round Table, and the site manager is a Rotarian. Even though I doubt he is a knight, I may be wrong. Alexander was contacted by the operations director of ACC Limited, who proposed renegotiating the payment terms and taking back the site manager. Alexander claims they're too late. Before beginning his next work, he will not have enough time to complete this one. If all goes according to plan, there is a bare minimum of 11 days of labor remaining. On November 4th, Alexander will begin his new job. If he works both weekends, there are just 10 days remaining. Now it's too late. Being a fly on the wall during the telling of loud nonsense would be my dream come true. People often wonder what Alexander does for a living. It would be as revealing as giving you his full name and address if I told you what it was. I apologize. The short supply is due to the fact that being a competent craftsman requires 5 years of practice, and becoming a master craftsman takes at least 9. There must be a master present at all times for the tasks to be completed. Bad news in Update 4. The other position was not offered to the sacked site manager. The new firm he met with declined to hire him. The rationale is unclear. To talk about it, Alexander will meet with him on Sunday. Even though it is not his fault, I can see that Alexander feels terrible about it. Unfair dismissal is an issue that the site manager plans to address. Life isn't always black and white, though. I was hoping this would be a win-win situation. Statement. Regarding the dismissed site supervisor, we were very optimistic about the scenario. It seems that what transpired on Friday was misconstrued. He was spoken to yesterday by Alexander. The bit about how the employer he visited on Friday isn't hiring him in the typical sense is true. However, a distribution center construction contract with a set duration of 18 months was extended to him. It's not ideal, but compared to ACC, the pay is a little better. That's better than nothing, even though it's only been 18 months. Additionally, the new business may decide to prolong the contract in the event that they receive another project. A Bulgarian is supposedly going to come over and do the work, according to Alexander. When Alexander informed me, he was smiling. He believes he has a good idea of what's coming. Some Sofia structures from the 19th century employed a similar but distinct method. According to Alexander, such a strategy is exactly what the person will adopt. It may appear the same, but there are 2 key ingredients that set it apart. So far, Alexander's plan is to wait. He intends to hand the payment to the Bulgarian after the work is complete. After that, Alexander will recommend that the customer and the planning department verify the 2 parts. The Bulgarian will have utilized the incorrect resources unless he is familiar with the 17th century English approach. Taking it all apart and beginning over would be the only option. When it comes to this kind of job, they are quite picky. Even though I know I shouldn't, I'm genuinely hoping this comes to fruition. What a petty man I am. Alexander may find out quickly, as one of the supplies is in short supply, which is why many are wondering when he will know if the Bulgarian has done a good job. Their encounter with the Bulgarian will be communicated to Alexander. It's a small, incestuous subset of the business, and according to Alexander, they gossip like old ladies. Yes, it's true that we all engage in idle chatter like cynical older folks. Until he hears that the work is complete and the Bulgarian is paid, Alexander will leave it alone if he doesn't go there. He would prefer not to risk losing the money. I can't wait to dump dumb bollocks in the crap, but I don't want the Bulgarian to come all the way here and go empty-handed, as Alexander put it. He has to work to make ends meet. Be patient with me. In case anyone was wondering, boisterous gobshite and foolish bollocks are one and the same. Unless the Bulgarian works on weekends, he should be able to complete the project in around 3 weeks. Alexander is well connected both on-site and at ACC headquarters, so he will be informed when the project is complete. So, I'll have to keep my hands to myself for the next 3 to 4 weeks and seem like I'm not a hyperactive 7-year-old who can't wait for Christmas to arrive. Fifth update. Word reached Alexander that the Bulgarian dove headfirst into the task. The items he received were from a regular building supply company. Even if they sell it in Bulgaria, the equipment he needs to execute the job well is too heavy for him to bring with him. So yet, he hasn't placed an order with the UK provider. Out of the 3, just one possesses what is needed for this position, as they secured it for Alexander. If he isn't traveling via road and ferry, then he's not making use of the proper materials. Even if Alexander weren't irritated by the noise, he still wouldn't let it go unnoticed. Being a historical authenticity perfectionist, he has a real devotion to the structures he works on and takes great pride in their maintenance. I will now need to refrain from drinking water for the next 3 to 4 weeks. According to Alexander, he may be able to complete the task faster if he used more contemporary materials. Remaining in the 17th century will take you 3 weeks. Regarding this position, I've become somewhat of a freak. I learned I was chasing information again when I contacted Alexander earlier under a false pretense. Fuck me, Alexander. Would you like me to install a body cam so you can see and listen in real time? Please include me in your phone conversations if it is not too much bother. Alexander, once you've laughed, you fucking cheesehead, that would be wonderful. When I crap and slap my wife, is it alright if I hide the camera? As for me, I prefer to keep those 2 things separate, but I suppose I should listen to you, Alexander, and do what makes you happy. Hey, when are you going to slap my wife? After she's done with you and washed the linens. It's me. Sorry, Alexander, but some of us can be rather picky. Whoops, you're just a control freak who can't let go. Farewell, and meet you again soon. Good manners in England have gone by the wayside. Even while it may not appear that way, the truth is that I am actually rather busy. I assure you. I never would have thought I would type when I started writing this. Major news update number 6. 2 weeks ago, the Bulgarian returned home after completing the task. Many who crossed paths with the Bulgarian described him as an honest and diligent worker. He worked 12-hour days and weekends to save money when he was in the UK. Alexander is relieved that he held off on reporting the job until Stefan received payment, given what he knows about Stefan. Already, Alexander had a good feeling that Stefan was botching the task. He had contacted the 3 companies that were the sole UK sources for the specialty material needed for the project, but none of them had mentioned having an order for the location. Although Stefan may have imported it, no one on site had ever seen an order for materials from outside the country. Following his original plan, Alexander contacted Historic England, the client, the planning department of the local council, and the architect. He detailed his worries and the most convenient, non-invasive method of testing. Once they began investigating, he patiently waited. It took all of 2 days, but I've never been so worried or involved in something that's completely out of my hands before. The architect provided the initial report. I used the wrong procedure. Mistaken approach utilizing inappropriate resources. The expected 17th century English was not employed. Instead, a Bulgarian method from the 19th century was adopted. It was clear that the architect was really irate. According to Alexander, the architect has never used foul language before, But this particular phone conversation was different. According to the architect, that obnoxious cockwomble is what all that annoying noise is referred to as. A cockwomble was defined for me by Alexander. That was completely foreign to me. We are open to suggestions. The architect has threatened to notify the appropriate authorities so that they will not associate him with the matter. Everything else was acquired by Alexander in a secondary or tertiary manner. Some of the ACC employees are people he knows. Was it hard to persuade them to open up to him? I wanted to know. He said that they are unable to answer the phone quickly enough. Planning officers from the local authorities paid a site visit to assess the progress. They made it plain to the contractor that something was seriously wrong with the job and that it needed to be redone. It became intriguing after that. The location was surveyed by the inspectors. They discovered a problem. Because naming the buildings would be too simple, I will not be precise about this. A portion of the structure has been damaged by the contractor. As part of the roof's framework, there was an unsightly interior element. They took it down and replaced it with a current support that is far better. They cannot, however, do so. Nobody on staff, even the new site manager, had any idea how important it was, not even the project manager. Do you know who requested its replacement? A fast and inexpensive alternative to a sluggish and costly repair. It had to have been noisy gobshite. Destroying any property of this type is a criminal act. Sort of offense that warrants incarceration. The fine is enormous regardless of whether they are not sentenced to jail time. As a result, everyone in that firm is now trying to shift blame and accountability onto someone else. The obnoxious dweeb has denied ever giving the order to remove the roof's inside components. According to the email from the project manager, he did. All of the contractor's employees were ordered from the site by the customer on Tuesday, the 19th. Their investigation into the matter is ongoing. They will likely terminate the contractor's employment. New contractors have been given instructions to submit proposals. The expense of fixing and replacing whatever the contractor did incorrectly will be covered by their lawsuit. An estimate of £800,000 was given by the architect. The contractor was warned in a letter from the local authorities' planning department of impending inspections and possible prosecution, as well as of the consequences for the contractor's actions. The employees claim that the day the letter came, noisy gobshite vanished to meet with the attorneys. As soon as word got around the office about the letter, Alexander received calls from 3 separate ACC employees within an hour. Consequently, we are currently in the waiting phase. 1. Examination by the client. The customer has the authority to terminate the contractor if that proves that ACC caused harm to the site. ACC has a huge repair cost and no money coming in. 2. Conservation specialists examine the local government. The local council has the ability to prosecute both ACC and the one who ordered them if they have damaged any aspects of the property. The shattered internal structure cannot be rebuilt, which makes Alexander very upset. According to him, that thing has been functioning normally for 400 years until that filthy jizz stain shows up. Once it's gone, he'll never again appear truly sad. It's likely that noisy gobshite is longing for the day last month when he had his very own cup of coffee. Make changes. They did not threaten prosecution in the letter to ACC. They used a pseudonym. Basically, it only let them know that the planning department was going to send a professional to check over the building, namely the component that would be impacted by the alteration. If prosecution does occur, it seems to take an eternity. For misinforming you all, I am very sorry. I was all too ready to grab a pitchfork and assume the worst, just like everyone else. The tale had progressed significantly by the time it reached Alexander, thanks to a mix of wishful thinking and Chinese whispers. The likelihood of noisy gobshite facing charges is higher that it will take 6 months rather than 6 days. I have made 2 corrections since I began. I assure you that in future updates I will do my best to be more careful. Not Alexander's fault, mine. A word from Alexander. Be careful. Not everything that goes into your ears has to come out of your lips. You're eager to satisfy everyone's hunger. If you bollocks up the information, they might believe you're farting rainbows right now, but it won't last. That's correct. Just like every time. Like clockwork. As obnoxious as ever. Data that was sought. I was unable to provide an answer until now in response to several questions on the fate of the previous site manager, who was sacked. In the pub, 2 others, the site manager, Alexander, and I met. He will start on February 9th, and the new position is undoubtedly his. The only thing holding him back is passing the fidelity insurance checks. The ACC gave him a sum to avoid giving him notice. It's how firings are often handled. Due to his 12-day holiday/vacation accrual and the 3-month notice provision in his contract, he received somewhat more than 3.5 months' salary all at once. Until March, he is also allowed to keep the automobile. According to him, I was trembling like a shitting dog. However, my wife brought to my attention the fact that I had the option to collect my pension early and how much I despise that firm, particularly that dubious individual. I stopped fretting when the architect contacted me regarding the distribution center project. His new work starts off with a little better income, and he gets Christmas off. The one and only drawback is that the employment guarantee is only valid for 18 months. After that, if they still have work, the firm is likely to retain him. Simply said, it is not certain. At first, he intended to file a claim for unjust dismissal with an industrial tribunal against the obnoxious individual. He can't do it now as he won't go bankrupt. He expressed his anticipation of defeating that Watso 3 in court, while acknowledging that he is delighted he is not losing money. He is currently constructing a more robust sleigh and a herd of reindeer using the spare time. A sleigh, indeed. You'll see it mounted on the rear of a vehicle. While Santa Claus rides about in his sleigh, his elves and snowmen collect money for a good cause by ringing doorbells and singing Christmas songs. It's happened to me several times. He delivered the whiskey he had promised to Alexander. Despite Alexander's protests, the site manager insisted that the Yorkshireman maintain his word. Even in the face of a deluge of gentle shandy-drinking Southerners like yourselves. Plus, I am not going to jeopardize this run of good fortune. There was a 50% discount on all spirits. Alexander and I both pointed at him at the same time and reiterated, a real Yorkshireman. In case you didn't know, the people of Yorkshire are known for 2 things. They are extremely careful with their finances and speak frankly. After scolding him for assuming I was from the South, we adjourned to the site manager's garage for some whiskey and to gawk at his sleigh building skills. Will they give me free samples of Cardew Gold Reserve if I rave about how delicious it is? Hello, my name is Reese. Chilterns is the place of birth. Cymru and Bith are part of Saxe negotiation. So, you've certainly picked up on a few instances of bad grammar. Because I'm drunk on whiskey, I'm being evasive right now. It's after my bedtime now, as it's 1 a.m. So long for now. 7th update. I fear a measure of karma is about to be imposed. Caution was exercised throughout the interview with Noisy Gobshite. That they are making preparations for the prospect of legal action against him is different from saying that they are actively pursuing legal action against him. They proceeded in a similar manner with the project manager and will do the same with the former site manager next week. It doesn't concern the site manager in the least. Following his dismissal, the decision was made to dismantle the roof support components. He claimed to be certain that the Noisy Gobshite would have attempted to shift blame if he had been present during the unlawful modification. Or, as the site manager put it, that spineless turd would have soiled himself in order to protect himself. What the fuck? Fortunately, the project manager had email evidence that Noisy Gobshite placed the order for the job. The obnoxious cretin attempted to convince him not to inform the local authority planning department's investigators by offering him bribes. After that failed, he resorted to threatening him. In addition to ignoring the threats, the project manager informed investigators that Noisy Gobshite instructed him to delete the email. Thus, it backfired. According to my legal acquaintance, it is a crime in and of itself to tamper with a witness or destroy evidence. The disrespectful dweeb just won't quit making things worse for himself. In the event that he avoids punishment, I will be deeply dissatisfied. However, he is undeniably in pain. The week's most important news stories. The obnoxious dweeb has been let go. After hearing it from at least 4 separate ACC workers, Alexander made the announcement yesterday, Saturday. According to him, they were eager to inform him. The following is how the discussion progressed. What the fuck? How is it even possible? In what ways might an owner be fired? Is it true that he went to a mirror and told himself, "You're useless. You're fired"? No way, Alexander. The company was passed down to him from his father and uncle, right? Yes, I am. Are you aware, Alexander, that his cousin and brother each possess a portion? Yes, I am. Together, Alexander, they own more than half of the company. Therefore, he was let go. The accounts manager, Sophia, claims that they are defecating. They were content to let noisy gobshite run things as long as the cash came in, but now their prized possession appears to be in poor health. Their worst nightmare is that the company will go bankrupt as a result of losing this contract and the associated fines and penalties. In light of this, they are pleading with the client/proprietor to reinstate ACC so that the deal may be finalized. One aspect of this is making the building owner understand that noisy gobshite will never be associated with the enterprise. The fact that they are blaming noisy gobshite is evident. According to Sophia, noisy gobshite screamed and threatened violence when they dismissed him. Someone had to take him away from the property. He calls around to different departments, demands answers, and then seems startled when staff refuse to assist him. He believes the staff like him and wish to be loyal to him, says Sophia. According to her, the dude is off in cuckoo world. I wish I could have seen the expression on that dweeb's face when it happened. He's going to be so irate. You know what? The scrote really deserves it, Alexander. I made a solemn vow to the one who informed me that I would keep this information to myself. Therefore, I am not going to tell you anything further just now. Dude, you're so cruel to me. Is it significant? Big deal, Alexander. Transforming the subject's life. I almost had an erection because of that. I wish I could tell you. If anything can make that unsightly limb do anything other than dangle there like a discarded chicken, it must be enormous. It was likely a happy occasion for your wife. This is really dramatic, Alexander. This is something I was told in private, and she feels I should tell her. Being married gives her the impression that I should be able to confide in her about everything. I made it clear that it is not my secret. I was hoping to hear something along the lines of "I admire your honesty, my dear husband," but instead my irate wife thinks I'm a complete moron. To ensure the safety of the innocent, Sophia's name and work title have been altered. Please don't hold your breath. It looks like he has a few months to tell me this fantastic news. The customer, who is also the owner of the building, has completed the inspection. Typical. 2 parts aren't up to scratch. Specifically, the region that was harmed and the task that Stefan completed instead of Alexander. Their misery knows no bounds. The local administration usually blames the owner for cutting corners when listed buildings are harmed, but in this case, the owner is a strict institution committed to maintaining vital structures. The burden of proving their innocence in relation to the building damage was too much for them as they are not accustomed to being accused of anything unethical. According to Alexander, it appears that ACC has been written off as a form of request for proposals that has been sent to many other conservation-focused firms. Afterwards, he proceeded to spew a great deal of technical terms that I did not comprehend and do not recall. They have requested many businesses to provide estimates for the work in plain English. Sure, that's a simplified way of putting it, Alexander, but I'm too busy to give you a detailed explanation. Alright. Let's pretend they want to know how much the project will cost. The twat was impuissant. As a result, I was expecting a climax in which noisy gobshite suffers some terrible fate, but instead, the tale has kind of died down while we await the outcome of the court proceedings. Real life moves at a painfully slow pace. Monday, January 21st, 2020. Greetings. I am Nathan's wife. When he remained silent online, the moron wanted me to apologize on his behalf. He sustained injuries in a vehicle collision on January 7th. Although we have faith in his eventual complete recovery, he will be unavailable online for the time being. I initially said it was only Reddit, but he's a complete control freak when it comes to disappointing others, so I pledged to include Reddit as well. Here I am informing everyone that he is confused about why he hasn't completed telling them anything that they are unlikely to read anyhow. February 2nd, 2020. There were more than 200 direct messages. This is Nathan's wife again. Your feedback and best wishes are much appreciated. I'll address the 3 most often asked questions after reading them all to him. 1. Nathan, where are you? As he waited in line to exit the highway, a big rig slammed into the rear of his vehicle. Between Nathan's vehicle and the truck ahead of him, his vehicle was crushed. His bones are all fractured. He had injuries to his nose, left orbital bone, cheekbone, forearm, left radius and ulna, left hand, lower leg, right tibia and fibula, and 4 ribs, and one of those ribs perforated his left lung. We pray this is only a temporary setback to his left eye's center vision. Additional surgery is necessary due to damage to the tendons in his right hand. Cuts abound. I counted 1,112 stitches. It appears like he's in a lot of pain, but there's still hope that he may get better without suffering any long-term harm. From the time I've known him, he has been rock solid, but I doubt I could handle it. I broke down in tears the moment I arrived at the hospital and saw him lying there, surrounded by tubes and cables, covered in blood. It didn't take long for him to get me giggling. His ability to say just the perfect thing has never wavered. Right now, being unable to use his hands is the thing that is troubling him the most. 2. How long till the story is updated? It may take some time. Though I am not nearly as good a storyteller as Nathan, I may inquire with the acquaintance he has contacted via Alexander to get an update. Even though I may be prejudiced, Nathan is, without a doubt, the funniest individual I have ever encountered. I can scarcely catch my breath from laughing when he and Alexander start. At least for the time being, I've instructed him to focus just on getting better. However, if he starts to feel overwhelmed, I've offered to play the part of a secretary and let him tell me the narrative. He will complete it. I am sure of it. Nothing ever gets past him. 1/10 of his self-control would be an asset to me. 3. Some have even requested whether they may contribute financially to cover his medical expenses and missed wages in the form of presents or cards. It is not required, but I am quite grateful that you have offered. Here in the UK, we are lucky because medical treatment is completely free. No one's money matters to him. Macmillan Cancer Support is a long-standing charity that we have supported, so if anyone feels compelled to do something, they may. Last but not least, my identity turns out to be a problem for the proprietor of this company. The Tale of Alexander and Noisy Gobshite. This account, which is primarily for Gruntle, belonged to my spouse Nathan as of May 22, 2020. His friend Alexander and a businessman he dubbed Noisy Gobshite were the protagonists of the novel he penned. Up until his January vehicle accident, Nathan had been keeping the tale up to date. He then requested that I inform everyone about his injury and promised to provide an update after he had healed. Nathan sadly died a little over 7 days after my previous comment. His abrupt unconsciousness and rapid death shocked everyone who had assumed he was on the mend. His aorta had burst, and despite the best efforts of the medical team, he did not survive. It is usual for cars to sustain damage in accidents, so they assumed it had happened during the incident. I apologize for the delay in updating this, but I must admit that I entirely lost track of this webpage. Nathan had a lot of people waiting for him to finish the narrative, but I didn't realize it until I read his words again. While I can't guarantee that everyone will get this update, I would really appreciate it if you could share this news with anyone who was hoping for a response from Nathan. You have my gratitude. Many thanks to the hundreds of Nathan's supporters who sent get well wishes. My apologies for the prolonged absence. I've been in a state of complete disorientation for the past 3 months. Without a doubt, Nathan would have scolded me for abandoning everyone in uncertainty and disapproved. Despite the seeming strangeness of seeing funds donated in the name of largely Gruntled, I am very grateful to those who have contributed to Macmillan Cancer Support. Last but not least, I'd want to express my gratitude to the moderators, especially /u and /Mirari01, who were a great help in figuring out how to notify everyone. On May 24, 2020, I was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support and encouragement I received online. Your kind words and virtual hugs meant the world to me. For hours, I have sobbed. It's difficult to put into words the value of sobbing for a lost loved one. You can undoubtedly relate if you've ever lost a loved one. A lot of today's good weeping has been inspired by your postings and letters. Thanks to what you said, I've been remembering all the good things about Nathan and the reasons I loved him. I mustered up the courage to finish the update after abandoning it 8 times. Doing it made me so happy. The moderator, /u/Mirari01, gave me the final push I needed, and I'm really grateful to him. It has also opened my eyes to the fact that there is something more Nathan would have wanted me to undertake. Whatever he began, he always completed. I intend to inquire about the situation by speaking with his acquaintances. While I am familiar with some of it, I will do my best to stay abreast of everyone's progress. This is not going to be like Nathan's writing, I promise. Only the facts will be presented. Commenters clearly wanted to see where this narrative went, but I lack Nathan's storytelling skills. The simple truths will have to suffice. Kindly exercise patience. The individual he referred to as Alexander has been my rock this year, and I intend to talk with him. I am hoping he can fill me in on everything. As soon as I am able, I will input the update. I am really grateful to everyone. I can't tell you how big of a difference this has made. My mood improved yesterday, mostly as a result of your comments, 25/05/2020. My anger after today's awakening has persisted. I can't stop fantasizing about how much fun we would have had if Nathan were here today. A public holiday in England. On vacation, he never slacked off. I'm furious because a self-centered moron couldn't wait to respond to a text message, and as a result, I've lost the best friend I've ever had. This is so unjust and ignorant. I just can't get over it. Nothing will make my Nathan return, even if he does serve a little prison sentence. I only wanted to rant, so please forgive me. Do not, under any circumstances, allow yourself to be distracted by the use of a mobile device while operating a motor vehicle. On this, March 6, 2020, I'd want to bring up 2 points. First, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who has commented. My spirits have been raised by all the kind things you have spoken about Nathan. I apologize for the delay in breaking the news of Nathan's death. I honestly didn't think they would. Indeed, you were of assistance. Even though I have cried reading your beautiful Nathans thousands of times, I still wanted to say sorry that I haven't replied to every comment just yet. I feel like I could spend all day gushing about Nathan on certain days. On other days, just thinking about him makes me feel sick to my stomach. I have read every single response, so it's not like I haven't answered you. It's simply that there have been times when I felt really down and unable to respond. Like I did with the cards during his burial and thereafter, I will respond to everyone at some point. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to finish them all. Despite feeling like I was atop an endless mountain, I managed to respond to each and every one of them. Every one of the 322 of them. Among Nathan's many admirable traits is the ability to see projects through to completion. Please, just tell me that he called me Cariat again. I am not known as Cariat. Love is the Welsh word for it. August 27, 2020. In the morning. Holy cow. Even though I haven't been on the internet in a few days, I've gotten hundreds of messages. I still can't sleep. And it hit me. I could fill you in on what happened to all the folks Nathan mentioned. That's all there is to it. It lacks Nathan's sense of comedy and flair. I apologize if this is just simple information, but that is all I can do at the moment. His new role as site manager on a distribution center construction project got off to a smooth start. Nathan had already expressed the dissatisfaction of the site manager and Alexander. In comparison to being an employee, being a self-employed individual with a set 18-month contract had its drawbacks. The coronavirus came later. Although many workers were let off or put on furlough once the virus struck, the corporation was obligated to continue paying the site manager in full per the contract. In the end, the thing he despised became his savior. Disruptive nonsense. Alexander's most recent update on disruptive nonsense was that he was compelled to sell his stake in the company, resulting in his not owning a third of it. Should the sum of all obligations exceed the net worth of the business, he was required to put his assets on the line by signing a personal responsibility agreement. According to my understanding, this means that if the company's total expenditures are higher than what Noisy Gobshite can afford, then he will be held financially responsible, even if it means losing his house. He was forced to relinquish his portion of the firm due to the fact that they were unable to continue trading with him on board. To keep paying the attorneys, he needs them to keep going. Though he has not yet faced criminal charges, that is soon to change. They waste a lot of time looking into it and getting ready to charge him. Having the necessary courtroom preparations in place once he is accused is of utmost importance. The fact that he was warned in 2011 for comparable but far less serious damage to a listed structure also surfaced. Alexander has been informed that the local authorities have reported several inconsistencies to HMRC, the taxman, and that Noisy is also under investigation for VAT fraud. A pricey cup of coffee was mentioned in one of the first Nathans on Nathan's article. To say the least would be an understatement. It was supposed to be all about the raucous antics and the 2017 sexual assault/rape of a pod at the ACC headquarters, along with other incidents of sexual harassment. Although the rape assault did occur, it was not a very loud ordeal. He has been the head of finance before. The rumors around the alleged sexual harassment of female employees have not materialized into anything more than that. Alexander. The COVID-19 pandemic likely had little impact on him professionally or financially. Everything is business as usual for him as he is self-employed and does not struggle with social alienation. There aren't the typical dweebs around to trip over my equipment or stick plank ends into my finished work, he claimed, making the job easier. In Alexander's case, things are not looking good. Alexander felt the loss of Nathan more than everyone else, including his own family. He plays it cool around me, but when we're together, he's unmovable. He rescued me from my own misery. I feel like I can finally let go of Nathan around him and 2 other individuals. At least that's what I had expected. The wife of Alexander was really kind and understanding when I spoke to her last week. However, she did advise me to be careful around Alexander. His wife claims it's breaking him, even though he appears strong to me. His friendship with Nathan was obvious to me. His grief at Nathan's death has been profound, according to her. She claims that during their whole marriage, she saw him weep just once, upon the loss of their dog. Upon his parents' passing, she failed to observe him weeping. She mentions that he appears to be confused and has shed several tears. The most heartbreaking part is that he always ends up crying after seeing me. It makes me feel horrible. I was unaware that I was placing an undue burden on him. His grief was plain to see. I promised to be more cautious and not let him take out my frustrations on him. If only she had communicated earlier. Alternatively, perhaps I ought to have been cognizant of it rather than fixated on my own sorrow. To my knowledge, that is the extent of the updates. Everyone is holding their breath to see what kind of noise he is accused of. He faces potential jail time if found guilty of damaging classified structures. He will almost certainly face prison time if found guilty of VAT fraud. In either case, the penalty will be 6 digits. Alexander asked whether he would prefer coffee while incarcerated. His sense of humor is quite wicked. July 27, 2025, around 2:30 in the morning. Notifications for 512 private messages and comments were waiting for me when I logged on earlier. Starting is the hardest part. Please don't take my lack of response as an indication that I am ungrateful if you have written to me. At 3:10 in the morning, I felt ready to write, so I did the update. I can't believe I can pull it off at the moment. I've been watching our wedding video. I was hoping that would lift my spirits, but instead I feel like a bus has run me over. I was heartbroken to hear Nathan's statement in which he recounted our meeting and his return to the house he had lived in with other Royal Marines. "Nathan, what's the joke?" one of them said. "So what's the big deal?" You're obviously laughing over something. Nathan refused to explain anything to them, saying he was unable to. Every time he remembered our date, a smile spread across his face. According to him, that's how he feels whenever I'm in his thoughts. It had a joyful and emotional effect on our wedding day, but this morning it crushed me. In my opinion, the discomfort is not abating. Worst case scenario, in my opinion. How unbearable. This feeling is overwhelming, and I am powerless to stop it. These days, all I can think about is how much I would have liked to have been in the car with him if I could have had him back. I don't believe I can, since my atheist father would have disapproved of my injuring myself because he constantly warned that this is your one and only chance. Having to go on like this is really tough. It needs to end already. It pains me to keep on in this manner. Writing this seems like yelling into a journal, yet I'm afraid to tell people I know because they become scared. To everyone, I apologize. Even if he tries to get a grip on things, I can't stop suffering from missing him. The next step is unclear to me. Bring it with them. At 17:25 on August 31st, 2020. I have responded to several messages since my previous update to this submission. Hundreds. However, I was unable to complete all of them. Even though I can't see or read any more chat messages, the screen indicates that I still have 92 messages waiting. No response means you're in the 92nd percentile. Our anniversary was yesterday, August 30th. It arrived, and as much as I had anticipated it, it seemed very hollow. I viewed the video of our wedding. Weeping broke my heart. I replied to a few texts. A wave of overwhelming joy washed over me when I realized, midway through a message, that my life's worth of bliss had already been fulfilled. And it was the end. As long as Nathan isn't here, no matter what I do in the future, it will all be for naught. From that point on until my death, everything will simply be existence. Simply taking in air and observing the passage of time. Without Nathan, it all seems meaningless. Whether I am able to continue writing is uncertain. To all those who volunteered, you have my deepest gratitude. Your company is delightful. Remember that the people you care about might disappear at any moment. Don't make the same mistake I did and think you can live happily ever after in your own little paradise. Everything you hold dear may be snuffed away in an instant by a reckless individual, leaving you with nothing to look forward to. Bye.